Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with here today with an article from Outkick. This is dated, what the heck was it dated? April 17th. I have no idea why I scrolled down other than say hi to Charlie Arnold there. Hello. But this article is about basically a lolcow in the sports industry, and that's Jemele Hill, the very first name you see on here. It says, Jemele Hill rants about Caitlin Clark's WNBA salary situation, calls it a form of misogyny. Jemele Hill, for those of you that don't know, is and I use this term in the loosest possible way, a sports journalist. She's also a very far leftist that, of course, everything is an hysterophobe or a misogyny sort of thing, without realizing, that she's a leftist, so she doesn't seem to understand how things work. So there's been a lot of news coming out the last few days about, Caitlin Clark got drafted into the WNBA as the first overall pick, as was expected, and they showed her salary, which is not exactly what someone would think like a professional basketball player may make, but you got to realize that the situations between the NBA and the WNBA are completely different. So Jemele Hill thinks that, because the company that she would support, which is the WNBA, makes far less money than the NBA, that Caitlin Clark should still be paid like how the men are getting paid, which just is not economically feasible. But let's see what this article says about it. And again, Jemele Hill is not exactly an intelligent human being. Not cutting that out. So it says, Jemele Hill, noted woke sports journalist, was worked up over the WNBA's so-called gender pay gap and somehow tied it all to misogyny. Because that's the only game that these leftists have, is everything, again, is an hysterophobe or a misogyny, and there's no actual, common sense with them. So it says, Hill got heated over the online discussion surrounding Caitlin Clark's rookie contract. People were left shocked to learn that Clark, the number one overall draft pick this year, is slated to make $76,000 next year as part of her rookie deal. So she's coming out of college, and she's making $76,000. It's actually not horrible. So there you go. And that's Jemele Hill for you. It says, Clark fans threw up their hands in disbelief at the upcoming women's basketball star raking in significantly less money than no-name NBA rookies. Gee, I wonder why. But anyway, let's keep going. It says, Jemele Hill compares the WNBA to the NBA, and you can't really do that. The only thing they have in common is just they both play basketball. Other than that, they're not really the same thing. But it says, meanwhile, Jemele Hill is oddly mad about people comparing WNBA pay against the NBA. On her X account, Jemele Hill ranted about the paid discussion surrounding Clark, the WNBA's popularity compared to the NBA on a timeline, the dangers of letting WNBA players pursue more money overseas, such as Brittany Griner, and called the discussions of salary difference between the WNBA and NBA a form of misogyny. These are all things we'd expect to hear from the infamous Jemele Hill, and infamous is the right word to describe her. Says, Jemele Hill said this, says, I'm already annoyed by this conversation because for years WNBA players have fought for more money. Hill started. The perpetually pissed writer, whose platform is far too reliant on identity politics, made questionable declarations in her online rant. Hill seemingly protected Caitlin Clark despite having targeted Clark weeks earlier, demanding that the media spend more time highlighting black athletes instead of the white Iowa player. Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion lately that I've seen about, a lot of black people are pissed. Commentators. I shouldn't say people. Those would be commentators that are pissed about, oh no, the potential biggest star in the WNBA is a white woman, and also saying, for the NBA, that some of the people that are up for the MVP are all, white European players. Who gives a crap? You want eyes on your product. Who cares what the person looks like? Are they good? You want them on your team. It should be as simple as that. The fact that their skin color is any shade of anything should not have any impact on that at all. But yeah, so Jemele Hill, of course, does her thing where she attacks Caitlin Clark by the color of her skin. I'm pretty sure there's a word for that. But, suddenly, Caitlin Clark doesn't get paid as much as an NBA rookie, then there's a problem. So here's what Caitlin Clark would be making for the first 4 years of her rookie contract. Okay, which you can see, even though between the first and second years, it goes up a little bit, but then it escalates a bit in 2026 and goes way up in 2027. So she's going to be doing pretty well. Those are fairly significant raises across the board. So let's go back to this. As the rant continues, it says, and when they were outspoken, so many of y'all told them to shut up or reminded them how they had no value. The NBA has had 50 plus years of investment, media coverage, etc. After 27 years, the NBA will not be the current NBA, so stop comparing them. So someone tell her to stop comparing them, because I don't think she understands how these things are actually different. But let's see if the article goes into it. Just further context, the salary is for 4 months of basketball. It's 40 games. Players also receive a free apartment and car. That doesn't make the salaries acceptable, but now you know why so many women's players play overseas to boost or supplement their income. Weaponizing this information against WNBA players is another form of misogyny. No, Jamel, that is not what misogyny is. And why did this ad just suddenly pop up here? Go away. Anyway, says the closing quote makes some sense. Says, quote, these women have been dreaming of playing professionally in front of American audiences their whole lives. Instead of clowning and reminding them of what they're not, buy the merchandise, go to the games, and watch the games on television. Very easy to criticize when most of y'all couldn't get paid to compete at anything. And that's probably what you need to do to get them to make more money, is you need to go to the games, buy the merchandise, and watch the games on television. That's true. But let's keep going here. It says, the silver lining is that rant, if any, was Jamel's challenge to so-called WNBA fans to put their money up if they truly support the league, instead of lamenting the financials between the men and women's leagues. More often than not, people will pretend to champion and watch women's basketball without actually supporting it. Yeah, that's been a huge issue, too. As you see a lot of these people out there that as soon as this became public knowledge, the salaries, they were like, it was one of those things like, yeah, they need to be paid the same as the men, but we're not actually going to go to the games. So it's like, then what are you doing? But so it says, however, if you ask Jemele Hill, she'd likely attribute the difference to a bias towards men's sports, disregarding the superior product. It says Jemele Hill's heart was identifying an injustice in the Clark salary situation and turning into one of her woke rants. As you still have one side that's not bothered about WNBA salaries against a side calling for increased pay without a sober understanding of how the business works. Higher revenue should lead to higher pay, as simple as that sounds. Let me see if I can get out of this ad. There we go. Okay, don't know why that was there. So it says, and in case you're wondering where the right side of the WNBA salary conversation lands, President Biden's X account put out an inane post propping up Caitlin Clark as kind of a martyr for the gender pay gap movement, which, yeah, I mean, it's not Joe Biden that put it out. It's someone working for him, probably Karine Jean-Pierre, who is, again, she's a leftist, so she, once again, I will reiterate, is not the smartest human being alive. As in, people discuss her pockets, including millions made from the NIL stuff. Clark is solely focused on the game, so how we got from there to misogyny can only be made possible through a signature Jemele Hill stretch of logic, which is all it is. Says people cried for the end of the pay disparity between the leagues, an idea that continually falls flat when comparing the WA and the NBA's respective revenues. And this is where you get into, this is why they are not going to be making the same amount of money. It's called basic economics. Now, admittedly, I am an idiot when it comes to economic stuff, but I can tell you that I know for sure that if there's two companies that you're comparing and one company makes a massive amount of money compared to the other one, then the people that work for the company that don't make as much money probably aren't going to themselves be making as much money as the other company. So here we go. It says, according to Statista, the NBA generated $10.58 billion in revenue in 2023. And by comparison, the WNBA drew $200 million in revenue. So how much less is that? That's, I mean, whatever the figure is, it's substantially less. So it says the figure is passable until you compare it to 2022. That year, the WNBA generated $60 million in revenue, presenting a massive uptick in audiences that may quell, or Clark can keep the momentum going as the new face of women's basketball. And also keep in mind as well that the NBA subsidizes the WNBA. The WNBA has never in its history been profitable in its 27 years. Okay? So why, based on what I've just said and what this article says here, would you be able to pay the women the same amount as the men? If you were to do that, understand something, that there would not be a women's league anymore. It would cease to exist. Okay? It'd be like going to McDonald's, okay, finding out their fry cooks are making $100,000 a year. Do you think McDonald's could afford to pay them $100,000 a year? No, they can't do that. Okay, they'd go out of business. So it doesn't make any sense. So keeping on with the article here, it says Caitlin Clark will inevitably draw more eyes to the WNBA with her generational talent. But for sports writers like Jemele Hill, Clark's impact on the game isn't enough. CC has to be the face of some cause, so Clark just wants to win, no off-the-court absurdity required. And yeah, I mean, I agree with everything in this article, that basically Jamel Hill is a freaking clown, and, you know, Caitlin Clark gets paid what the market has for her. You know, the fact is that there is no pay, the pay discrepancy is because one side makes significantly more money. It is a better product. Okay, if the women's product was better than the men's, I can guarantee you people would be watching that instead. But to people like Jamel Hill and other leftists, they don't seem to understand how things work. So it's all because of, as the article says, because of misogyny or some other thing. Racism, misogyny, you name it. So let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Do you agree with Jamel Hill? Or do you agree with that? This is just not economically feasible for Caitlin Clark here to make the same amount as an NBA rookie. Let me know in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.